Alright, happy Wednesday, 5th grade. So today we're going to talk about the Declaration of Independence. This is a very important part of our history, and it's something that I want to spend a little time talking about here. It's an interesting thing because in the middle of this war, the colonists are understanding that they have some things that they still need to do before, in case they do win, all right? And one of those things is to kind of tell the king what their plans are, all right? So let him know, like, hey, just so you know, if we win, here's what's going to happen, all right? So that thing that they did was called the Declaration of Independence. Okay, so first thing is first here. Let's want to give a definition to the word independence. Okay, so independence. It's that last word there, Declaration of Independence. And so declaration just means like we're saying something, right? And so independence means being on your own. Okay, being on your own, and that's what the colonists were trying to do, right? They did not want to be with the king anymore. They were declaring that they are going to be independent. They're going to be all on their own. Okay, so I do have some videos here that I want you to watch. Liberty Kids, like usual. This one here is just a short video about the Declaration of Independence, what it was, and why it's important. I do want you to watch both of them. You should have enough time today to watch both videos, okay? So, what was happening? First, let's do a picture. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to look up the Declaration of Independence. Images here, so you'll see the actual Declaration of Independence. Okay? We're going to find a picture of them signing it. So it's up to you which one you want to do. But I'm going to pick this picture here. This is kind of the famous one. Declaration of Independence. Okay. All right. So what was happening during this time? Okay. So the colonists, like we had said, they were fighting against the British Army and the king for a year. Okay. So it had been one full year of the American Revolution. Okay. It was not going super well. They were losing, but they still wanted to let the king know, like, hey, so you know, when we win, this is what's going to happen. So, the colonists were sick of the British and ready to go it alone, which, like we said, independence. They were looking to be independent from the king. They did not want to be with him anymore, right? We talked about how the king was making all those terrible decisions, and they were done, all right? So there were, 5 people here we're going to talk about today really quickly that kind of got together to write this Declaration of Independence. First is John Adams. We talked about John Adams, a very important person. Okay. Next was Thomas Jefferson, another very famous person. Okay. Roger Sherman, not as famous. Ben Franklin, we talked about how he was a really good author, and so he obviously was going to be there. He was going to help them out. And then Robert Livingston. Those were the 5 people that got together, and they wrote about their independence. Okay, so I want you to find a picture of John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin. Okay, that's why they're highlighted. 1, 2, 3, and I want you to put them in 1, 2, 3. All right, so John Adams first. Okay, you can pick any picture that you'd like here, but this is the guy that we talked about with kind of the funny hairline. Okay, copy image. John Adams first. Next is Thomas Jefferson. That's him. We're not going to talk a ton about Thomas Jefferson. John Adams. We'll learn more about them later when you're farther in your history career as a student. You're going to learn more about them in middle school, high school. Ben Franklin. Talked about Ben Franklin, what he was, what he did, why he was important. Paste this picture here. So now we have John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin. Okay. You'll notice that Ben Franklin is right here. Okay. Here's John Adams. Here's Thomas Jefferson. And those other 2 gentlemen here. Okay. So what was the Declaration of Independence? A picture here of the actual Declaration of Independence itself. So you can see it here. You can pick any picture that just shows the actual declaration. I'm going to pick this one because this is the original. This is the original one that they wrote on. Pretty cool. It is in, I believe, the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. Okay, so what it was a document to present to the king. Okay, so it was their way of kind of telling the king something. So I do want to give the word document a definition. Okay, so written, call the thing, written thing that gives information. Okay, so a written thing that gives information. The thing that's giving information about is what the colonists are going to do if they win. Okay, it said that the colonists are done being part of Britain and want to be their own country. Okay, so they're done being part of Britain. They are ready to start their own country, the colonists. Okay. And one thing that's kind of interesting, Thomas Jefferson, this gentleman, he actually wrote the rough draft for the Declaration of Independence. And those other four kind of helped him kind of put it together, take things out, add things. But Thomas Jefferson did most of the work. And if I'm going too fast today, just pause and you can catch up. Okay. So what is in it? All right. Now there's a lot of things in it. Okay. It's a very flowery language. It's kind of fancy language. But I want to look at one thing here because this is really the first time that we got a document for the United States of America. Okay. So when I said here number 2 in the Declaration of Independence, it said that the colonists are done being part of Britain and want to be their own country. The country that they created, they called the United States of America. And that is the country that we live in today. All right. And so this is a very important line here of what it means to live in America. Okay. So we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay, so what that means, we're going to talk about each one of those things. Life is easy. The right to be alive, right? Which seems kind of silly, but at the same time, if you remember what happened during the Boston Massacre, those 5 people that died, they did not have the right to be alive, right? The king and his army killed them, right? And so that is why life, they put that in there because we have the right to stay alive, right? To not die from the government. Right? Liberty is the right to freedom. Okay, so the right to freedom, just to be able to make your own choices in life. That way you don't have to do anything that anybody tells you to do. You can do the things that you want. And then last, in the pursuit of happiness, which means the right to there's a couple different ways that we could say this. The right to be happy. So the right to be happy. Okay, so what that means is that pursuit of happiness, if you want to do a certain job, like I chose to be a teacher, this is what makes me happy, right? The right to be happy, the right to choose what you want to do in life. Okay, so last slide here. When was it signed and completed? This was July 4th. 1776, we call this Independence. I spelled it wrong, but there we go. Independence Day, right? Because this is the Declaration of Independence. So on July 4th every year, we celebrate Independence Day. We also celebrate Samuel's birthday, but also we do celebrate Independence Day, July 4th. Okay, so last thing that I want you to do on the slide here is I want you to put 2 pictures of what you do during the 4th of July. All right, maybe you shoot fireworks, maybe you eat food. You tell me, what do you do on the 4th of July? And that is the last thing that I want you to do for the Declaration of Independence. Then watch these 2 videos, and then you're all good with that. All right, if you have any questions, ask Miss V.